Welcome to Toffee TV. It is me, Ped, Baz as well. No show this week with it being a bank holiday. He just won't let us in the pub. Steve wants double time on bank holidays as well. So we have to resort to this. A hangout on a Wednesday night when we should be watching the Champions League game. But we're here on YouTube talking about Everton versus Aston Villa, which, Baz, was just one of the most disappointing games of the season.
Yeah, it was rubbish, wasn't it? It was
one way to describe it.
Well, it was. I said the other day, for a 3-2, it was absolute garbage. I thought both sides were awful, to be honest with you. I thought Villa probably deserved to win in the end, but it was just a rubbish game.
Yeah. I thought before the game, I looked at the changes and I was really disappointed in the changes because I just felt like straight away we'd given the edge. We'd gone in, okay, we looked more attacking, but it was something that we talked about in the early part of the season. It was going back to that 4-2-4 again. It was leaving McCarthy and Barry exposed in midfield and playing two out-and-out wingers. Naismith, who's not a midfielder, as hard as he tries, he'll never naturally fit into that number 10 position. And for those three, Lukaku was isolated again, so it was very fragmented. And it what I couldn't understand about it was, you pay so much respect to a team like Manchester United at home. You work them out, you do the homework, you play a system that basically means for the whole game you don't have the ball and you play on the counter-attack. You go and play against a team like Villa, who again have got genuinely something to play for. We spoke about it last week on the show. Go in there, keep them quiet for 20 minutes, get them anxious, get the crowd on the backs. Hull had won midweek, Leicester had won, early on in the afternoon. So the pressure was on Aston Villa, and then we just come out with that team and just roll over on our backs and let them tickle our bellies.
Yeah, I mean, the formation, for me, it was more like a 4-5-1, to be honest with you. It was, we didn't have anyone supporting Lukaku. He was 30 yards away from the play. Too narrow again. I just don't think you can play Morales and Naismith together away from home. I think the both of them are just in and out in the game. You don't know what you're getting off them. And I was just disappointed that he changed Osman and Barkley, who'd had such good games against Manchester United, because whether you like Leon Osman, when Pienaar's not there, he's probably the only one really that can play that left side of the position at the moment, until we give someone else a go. And Naismith just hasn't been on any kind of form. And I thought Ross done okay against United, as much as he still struggles with the 3-yard pass. I thought he'd done really well. And it was just a bit of a strange one. If you're making changes to make changes, then make some ones like Galloway and Ledson and people like that, rather than just putting the same old in. So it was a bit frustrating. And the first half proved it. We were absolutely diabolical.
Well, it was a come down. That's what it was. It was a come down for me after so many good performances, and then leading up to the Manchester United game, which was a fantastic performance. And that's what it was. It was a come down, and it felt like, as you just said, making changes for the sake of making changes. We've spoke about it in the last, frequently in the last few weeks. One game a week has been suiting us. It's been suiting players like Gareth Barry. I mean, it's no coincidence to me that Gareth Barry had probably his worst game in the run of the unbeaten games that we've had. In this one where he's isolated, he is on his own with James McCarthy. There is no Ross Barkley in midfield. There's not that extra man, that extra player who as you just said there, Ross he's been getting back into form. And I thought against Manchester United, at times he was sloppy, but he looks like he's getting better. And then he gets taken out the team, as you said. And for Naismith, and it's no coincidence to me that we've been better without Naismith in the team. As much as I like the fella, and as much as I think he works hard and he scores vital goals, there's no natural position for him in this team. And he just fits into positions rather than having a position of his own. I think that's what he is. And he comes back in the side, and suddenly the team just feels wrong. You know, we've said it before. Ross is a midfielder who likes to break forward, but Naismith's a striker who, when playing in midfield, is going the other way, and it just doesn't work. It's the balance is completely wrong, and you know, as you say, Morales doesn't really help out on the left defensively. And when you're away from home, you can't get away with that. You can't get away with two wingers. And Lennon had a bit of an off day as well, which didn't help. You know, so you've got two wingers having an off day, and it just left us so exposed. And it just that was sort of that's where we started from, and we just never got going because we couldn't keep hold of the ball in midfield. You know, and it didn't take long for Villa to get on top, score for me what was a soft goal. And then before half-time, score a second very, very soft goal. You know, and we just never got going, and that's what was the most frustrating thing for me. And I just thought if we'd got Villa 20, 25 minutes into the game, frustrated them, I think we would have been all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with any of that. We didn't get going at all. We were second best to everything, and we give the ball away more than we probably have done in the last 3 months. And you know, I think a better side would have really put us to the sword. I think a better side would have stuck 5 on us in that first half because we were that sloppy. We weren't competing the way we have been. The first goal is really, really poor. Once again, no pressure on the cross. Where your centre half is, I've no idea. What Leighton Baines attempts to do, I've no idea. Why the goalkeeper doesn't attempt to dive, I've no idea. You know, so it's just a catalogue of errors, really. And it did seem as though the last kind of 6 games previous to that, we'd got back to similar to where we were last year. But on Saturday, we seemed to go back to where we were on August, September, October, November, January, you know, things like that. So it was really, really bad. The second goal was as bad as you'll see from a team defending off a set piece. And we just had a warning 5 minutes early when, I can't even remember who it was, just missed the middle of the goal, glorious header.
Ron Vlaar it was, off a corner.
Yeah. You know,
we looked so disjointed. We had nothing going forward. We didn't even have a shot in that first half. We were just so poor. And all you can go back to it again is making changes. Why? Because for the 6 games beforehand, he didn't make any changes. The consistency in the team got us, you know, 5 wins and a draw. I can't understand it for the life of me. I know in some of those games Kone played, and you know, but most of the team was settled and knew what it was doing. Yes, Morales coming for a game when we were at home and when you can get away with that kind of attacking style. But I just thought away from home, he didn't pay Villa any respect whatsoever, and it's come back to bite him basically. And I can't understand it. And something that gets labelled or has been labelled and will be continued to be labelled is the Europa League and the what that's had on the team. And we've said it continually. It's not the fatigue of the Europa League. It's more the mental side of it, how it's affected Martinez's thinking going from game to game. You know, because you only have to look over Christmas as well when there was a lot of games all at once. The team's changing all at that time, and we can get no consistency. And what's been proven is in the last 6 weeks or so, we've had a settled team and we've got wins, and that's no coincidence. And he changes it for this game. And okay, it's only a couple of changes, but it's changes in really important positions that have unsettled us defensively and attacking wise. And you know, we've ended up the end of 3-2 defeat. You know, and yes, we come out second half and we looked brighter, as in the players tried a little bit harder for 10 minutes. But, you know, they went down the other end of the pitch and scored a third. And that's it. You know, it was completely sloppiness again. An easy ball over the top. Baines is dragged up the pitch because Morales isn't doing his job. Jags is dragged over to where Baines should be. And a big gap's formed in the centre of the park for Tom Cleverley just to run down the middle and score down.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think I might have, if he wanted to make a change, and I understand why he might have wanted to give Morales some game time, But I think he maybe could have used him in the Naismith position. Left Osman out wide.
Yeah.
You know, and then at times we would have been able to get closer to Lukaku. You know, but yeah, I mean, the team was what it was in the second half. It was a really poor goal to give away. Gareth Barry gets caught with cleverly running over him, you know, and it was one ball there. It was a pass from that's gone about 40 yards into his feet, and he's finished it really well. You know, and then they just kind of kept us at arm's length, didn't he? You know, we passed the ball in front of them. We got it wide. We got it back. There still wasn't any shots. You know, and the game just petered out. It was just rubbish.
It was very, very rubbish. Talking about Tom Cleverley for a minute, you know, obviously we're linked heavily with him. I mean, what did you think of him? Because, you know, he's improved in the last few weeks as Villa have got better. You know, he scored against Man City this week. He scores a good goal this week. He scores a goal, you know, running from midfield, from deep onto a ball over the top, and it's a nice little finish. So what did you think about him in the prospect of maybe bringing him in as another midfielder?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Cleverley is he can get about the pitch, you know, and that's a vital thing, isn't it? I think he's decent on the ball. I wouldn't say he's a world beater, but you know, for a free transfer, I think he'd be a good addition. I think he could get us goals. You know, it'd be a no-brainer at a free transfer if we could get him. You know, like I say, people will you know, moan about him and everything else, but you know, I think he could come in and do a decent job.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it doesn't exactly fill me with much excitement when we're linked with this kind of player. He is sort of on the level of an Aidan McGeady kind of signing, but sometimes you've just got to take the chance, haven't you, and see what happens. I mean, we've signed players before that we thought they were going to be, you know, rubbish, and have turned out to be decent players. We do need to bolster the squad. That's clear. You know, and again, someone made a great point. You know, when we bought Beckford in on a free, you know, we sold him, you know, the next year, and we got what, 4 million for him. So, you know, sometimes you can bring these players in, and you know, you might only have to keep them a year. I mean, we could get Aidan McGeady could leave the club in the summer. You know, we could sell him for maybe 2.5-3 million quid and make, you know, $1 million profit on him. You've done what you need to do, haven't you? You know what I mean? It's failed, but if you've done what you've chanced your hand, then maybe it doesn't work. You touched there just for a moment on making changes, possibly different kind of changes. Now, Roberto Martinez has said after this game, he's come out and said he's not going to take any risks in the next 3 games. He wants to finish in the top 10. Woohoo! He wants to try and finish as high as possible. He's not making any changes. Not going to change much about what's in the team. I mean, what do you think about that personally? I mean, you know, for me, there's 3 games now to introduce the likes of Galloway into the squad, Ledson into the squad. You know, introduce a couple of youngsters onto the bench just to give them experience, set them up for next season, see what's there. You know, have they got the mentality to go into a Premier League environment? Have they got the presence to come on against West Ham away? You know, have they got can they handle Goodison Park full house? You know, okay, might be much riding on it, but can they do that? For me, I think that's much more worthwhile than finishing 9th instead of 11th, personally.
Well, yeah, because these players become an important part of the squad then, don't they? You know, otherwise they're untried and untested. But I can't see with his comments whether he's going to do that. You know, we may see Ledson getting in the squad. We may see Galloway getting on the bench for the last game or something like that. But, you know, the game will dictate whether they get on or not, you know, and money dictates it. You know, I heard you on a radio channel this morning talking about, you know, the difference between £3 million, and for Everton Football Club, £3 million is a big amount of money. From a pure,
sad thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but from a purely development point of view, Ledson, Browning, Galloway, maybe young Liam Walsh would have been another one. But when we've seen Luke Garbutt, who's come in and excelled and still can't get in, albeit we know that he had tonsillitis last week, the club confirmed, it makes you wonder whether these other lads are going to get a go as well.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, what I can't understand is, you've got a player there in Alcaraz. He's basically got 3 games left of his Everton career, essentially sitting on the bench, and you just think you've got a prospect like Brendan Galloway there, who was brought in by the club. They spent money on him from MK Dons. He's looked at as almost like a John Stones Mark II. He's ready to come in. He's played at England, every level up to like under 19s or whatever it is. You just think, get him on the bench, get him sat down on the bench, because we've said it ourselves. A lot of people have said it. Next season, realistically or non-realistically, we need 8 new players in the squad. Now, realistically, we're only going to bring in maybe 3 or 4. So those other players need to come from the youth ranks. Now, centre-back is obviously a position where we need to bolster it. The likelihood is, well, it's pretty much 99% we're going to lose Distan and Alcaraz. They're going to leave the club. That leaves us with John Stones and Jags. Now, ideally, you probably would look for another experienced centre-back and a young centre-back. So, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer that if Galloway can come in and just sit on the bench and feel part of the squad, that's what he needs to do. It's a no-brainer for me. I just don't see any problem. He doesn't have to play. If we're playing Sunderland and we're winning comfortably and there's 5 minutes left and we haven't made that third sub, then you could bring him on and go, this is what it's all about, mate. I know Roberto Martinez has got to be talking about finishing in the top 10 and finishing as high as possible, not only for morale, but also, I suppose, from a commercial point of view. The club's got commercial pressures about selling out the 2 home games. I understand all that. I mean, that's fine. Roberto Martinez can say what he wants. This is not Roberto Martinez. This is us. So, I just think that I'd like to see a couple of kids sitting on that bench. You go to the match on Saturday. It's a dull nothing game for us, but the prospect of seeing one of the young kids come on the pitch, it gives you that little bit extra to go with the game. We all loved it when Rooney came through. We all loved it when James Vaughan came through. We've all loved Ross Barkley, John Stones coming through. That's what you want to see. You want to see youngsters coming through the club, whether they're from the city or from outside the city, whatever. That's what you want to see. That's brilliant. So I'd love it if we could get a couple involved in the last 2-3 games. Maybe if it was just a different one every game, just to get them used to what it's like to be part of the Premier League, set them up for the pre-season. And it's not a case of where you get all these youngsters involved in the pre-season and then they all disappear. We don't want to see that. We want to see the youngsters being part of the squad and getting involved. Otherwise, what's the point? We're losing players between that 18 and 21 bracket. They're going into a black hole of oblivion. They're just disappearing. So I just would love to see it. Because we've got kids out on loan that could go do a job. Chris Long, for instance, could come in and be there, but he's on loan. You got Matthew Pennington, who's on loan at Coventry. He's just got their young player of the year. He's only been there since November. This is the problem, isn't it? They go to these clubs and they do very well, but it doesn't mean they're gonna do very well at Premier League level. And I think the only way you're gonna find out is by giving them a chance.
Definitely. I mean, John Stone, he could be sat in our reserves, the 21s. And, look at him. He's been with England. He nearly went to the World Cup. And that's the thing about it. We could be, we're not going to know until we've seen Brendan Galloway play half a dozen games. Tyus Browning came in and had a couple of little goals, but do we know whether he could do it week in, week out? Yeah, no, because he disappeared. fell off the face of the earth.
And his 2 games were at Old Trafford and Anfield,
Yeah.
and he was exceptional in both games. That to me is, I'll never understand why he hasn't been involved more.
Look, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of commercialism and trying to finish as high up as we can, and maybe that, selling the club to sponsors as well as selling the club to other players might come into it, where how high you finish. But for Everton, we're not going to win the league. We know that. Are we going to challenge for the top 4 next season? Well, look, I thought we would be this year, and we've been miles off it. So therefore, if we use this season as a barometer, then no, we won't be challenging for it next year. Possibly challenging for top 7, maybe. If we finish 9th, who knows? But you're only going to bridge any kind of gaps by bringing young players through. We're not going to do it with money, because we don't seem to ever have any. And that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So the only way we're ever going to bridge 3 and 4 places is by bringing these kids through and almost doing a Manchester United back in the 90s, and I know that is obviously very difficult to do, of course it is, but the only way to do it is by giving kids a chance. And if you don't give them a chance, you never know. And some players perform better with better players around. We might look decent at under 21 level, put them in the first team, and they play up 2 levels. So you only know that by giving them a go.
Yeah, completely agree. I think you've got to take that chance sometimes. Sometimes kids can go and play at a division below, and it just doesn't suit the way they play football. Yet they come into the Premier League, and the little bit of extra space suits their technical game. So yeah, that's a really good point. Just touching on Europe for a moment. Everton at the moment find themselves 3rd place in the Fair Play League, which there is Liverpool above them who are top at the moment, and West Ham. Now, obviously, Liverpool will get a Europa League spot. Now, obviously, if it comes down to West Ham and we were to get it, and we were to give the option, would you want that? Would you want to take the Europa League? I know it would be starting a little bit earlier, be starting around July time, but I've been looking on the likes of Twitter, and I think it's split 50-50. Not generally about having to start so early, but just playing in the Europa League again after this season. People looking at it and thinking, well, next season we wouldn't have any distractions of Europe, and we can go and have another go at trying to get that top 4. I mean, what are your personal thoughts on that?
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at it, aren't there? There's arguably it's easier to win the Europa League and get in the Champions League that way. Than the top 4. Otherwise, you look at it and use it as a development competition. So you think, right, okay, at home we'll try and play our strongest 11 and take 9 points. And the 3 away games, we play the likes of Brendan Galloway, Ryan Ledson, fringe squad players, and just take a couple of the first team there, and look, if you've got a player who's tired, he stays back. It's simple as, and you let the fans know that early doors. You say, look, if we can win the 3 home games, there's 9 points. And if we can take a point away from home in the 3 away games, there's 10. You're getting through on 10 points. Probably 95% of the time you will qualify on 10 points for the second phase of the Europa League. So you've given these lads a chance in the first team. You're giving them games, you're giving them experience. And it's, again, commercialised. You're getting the name around Europe. Okay, it's not the Champions League, and it can be a distraction. But for all the reasons we've said no to it this year, in terms of, we're saying it's a distraction because the manager's distracted by it. If he had a clear plan before going into it, like the home games, I will play my best 11, and the 3 away games, I will play kids and, a weakened 11, then everybody knows where they stand, and it's one of those things. I just don't think we should be in a position where we're turning tournaments down if we're given the chance. That's all.
No, I totally agree, and one of the reasons, people talking there saying, it start early, that kind of thing. Now that doesn't bother me. I've got no problem with starting early. I think coming back in July might actually help the team. I mean, you play against these sort of lesser teams in Europe when you do start early. I don't see it being that much of a problem. It just means a slightly tougher pre-season. That's all. Which I don't think is a bad thing. Again, like you touched on there, unfortunately, you've got to be realistic now and think Chelsea, Manchester City, and Arsenal and Man United are the top four and will be the top four for years to come. Liverpool and Tottenham, you look at the money they've thrown at trying to get the top four. Okay, Liverpool did it last year because they had arguably the best player in the world for that year. And they haven't done it this year. Okay, the argument is Southampton have done quite well because they haven't got Europe. But when it's all said and done, they'll be nowhere near Europe.
Exactly.
Yeah, they've had no Europe and they've fallen away massively as well. I mean, they've only won 3 games in the last 10 games, Southampton, so they've massively fallen away in the second half of the season. And I just don't see getting top 4 really. I just don't see it anymore. I think Manchester United are going to spend massively. I think Arsenal are going to spend big in the summer. City will spend big, and Chelsea will spend big. They'll all spend massively. Liverpool will throw their hat in the ring and try and catch them up. Spurs will do the same, and we'll be contending for a Europa League place. So we'll be trying our best to get a Europa League place that we don't want. And as you just said, Europa League is probably the best chance. I know it's a hard competition, but it's probably the best chance to get a Champions League spot. The only other way I would look at it is the only other thing I'd want is Everton to say, next season, the League Cup, we are throwing everything at it.
Yeah.
First round, full team. If we get through, second round, full team. Because I think the only thing is, when you start a Europa League, when you're in the Europa League and the League Cup comes, you are playing a lot of games at once. And the League Cup, like we've seen this season, becomes very much not a secondary competition. It becomes a third competition. We've seen what Martinez did with this year. And that's the only thing I'd want is to say, right, Martinez say, right, early doors, the League Cup is our biggest priority. The FA Cup doesn't start till January, so you don't have to worry about it. We are going for the League Cup hell for leather, and we're going to try and get through. And hopefully, hopefully by throwing your best team at it when other teams are throwing their second teams in it, playing a couple of lower league teams and sneaking through. How many times have we seen teams get to like the semi-finals without actually doing anything? It's mad how easy it is if you have a go for it. So that's the only other thing I'd go for. If it was between having a real go for the League Cup and having the Europa League, I'd want to have a really, really good goal because to be honest, I want to see Everton win something. We all want to see Everton win something. Rather than Champions League, I want to see us win something. I've always said that, so I'd want that before anything.
Yeah, and let's have it right. It's about 6 or 7 games, isn't it, to win it? It's a trophy we've never won. We may well be cursed in it because we always seem to get horrific draws. And when we don't, we always seem to just throw our hand in. But, if you go out and really go hell for leather, I don't understand why it isn't prioritised. Because it's about winning trophies. Sometimes it's about getting that first trophy that builds confidence and turns players into winners and gives them that hunger and desire to do more. Now, okay, a lot of teams have won the won the League Cup and, haven't gone on to win other cups like Swansea and teams like this, but Birmingham City and things. But just saying those 2 teams in terms of them winning trophies is bad enough when we haven't for 20 years. So we need to start. The reality of it is, there was a presentation a few weeks back on the financial side of the game. And the reality of it is that 77% of the time, the highest wage earners, highest wage bill, wins the league and wins the pots.
Yeah.
So we've got to look and think, have a little dose of reality and think, okay, if the league is beyond us, and it is, you know, let's be honest about it. And, you know, I mean, if people are calling Chelsea at the moment and they're so far ahead, then we've really got little chance, have we? So, you know, the top four, while isn't impossible, it's very, very difficult. Last year we done 72 points and still never got in, you know, and we're fantastic. So that's a bit disappointing. And the other thing, of course, is sorry about that, my little boy giving me a
live interruption.
Live, yeah. You know, that's gone. So therefore, why not the League Cup? Why not something? Let's get a trophy. Let's give some of the younger generation like him who's just burst in there. Yeah. You know, let's give them, let them witness a trophy. You know, witness a trophy. We've had a thing on our end. You know, you've been brilliantly putting up these day videos and things like that on our site, and we all know that we've had league championship celebration, you know, anniversaries and things like that, and a lot of people saying, you know, wish I was alive to see, you know, to have seen them days. You know, it's sad. 20 years for a lot of Evertonians to not see us go somewhere and win a cup. You know, and okay, it's the League Cup and it's not the Champions League or things like that, but it's a day out at Wembley and it's a trophy at the end of it, and
gets the monkey off your back as well, doesn't it? Exactly. It gets, you know, Mourinho's first era at the club started by winning the League Cup, and his second era at the club has been started by winning the League Cup. Now, I'm not saying if we won a League Cup, we go on to win the league or anything, but you know, it does get the monkey off your back, and then suddenly you're thinking, well, we've won one. Can we go and get the FA Cup? Can we, you know, that's realistically now, as sad it is, what our aims are. And yet, they aren't our aims. That's the mad thing. The League Cup's never been our aim. It was completely dismissed this season, completely dismissed. I mean, the team we played was an absolute disgrace, that team we played. It was basically a pre-season game for a lot of the players coming back from injury. It was
played it like a pre-season game as well.
Exactly. It was shambolic, and we need to get away from that, and it needs to be put up now as the highest thing. And that's, I mean, I know we're about 6 months from the first game, but I mean that from top to bottom. I mean, if the first game comes up at Goodison, the League Cup, and it's at Goodison Park, it should be a £5 for adults to get in and £1 for a kid or whatever. You know, something mad like that.
It's going to be August now, isn't it? Because unless we get the fair play thing in the Europa League, it's going to be kind of last week in August. And people are away and everything, so it should be at the most a tenner.
40,000, yeah. 40,000 you want at that ground, and you want to make sure that it's a sellout, and you want to make sure there's loads of kids there because it'll still be in the school holidays. The next generation, you know, even if it was a tenner for adults and it was free for a child, whatever. I know we're going way out in the future, but that's what we're saying. Right, let's quickly move on. Sunderland Saturday. Very, very little to play for apart from pride and obviously getting up that table. I mean, if we'd won on Saturday, we'd have 47 points now. We'd be in 9th place. You know, that's 3.2 million, for God's sake. Sunderland are coming to Goodison off the back of a win against Southampton, a home 2-1 win. They've only won 2 in the last 10. 2 in the last 4 games, though. They're in the bottom 3. They have got everything to play for. So from that point of view, it's going to be a tough game. And, you know, the last thing we want to be doing is getting beaten at Goodison Park with, you know, the second to last game at Goodison Park in the season when you're trying to finish on a high. And anything but a win in this game is going to leave a very sour taste in the mouths of Blues, you know, with only that one game at home left in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll win. I think we'll win 3-0, something like 3-1 maybe. I think there'll be a reaction to the Villa game. Yeah. I think I've seen enough. You know, the one thing I'd take from the Villa game, Ped, and I don't know whether you picked up on it, but it was like a big glare and siren, was that for the first time this season, I actually heard the manager say the first 45 minutes wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that's no matter what's happened all season when we've been shocking, he's still come out with some positive soundbite, and he didn't.
Yeah.
He said it wasn't good enough. It's below the standards and thing, and that's what Evertonians want to hear. We don't want to be listening to someone trying to kid us that something else is going on. We're not stupid. We're very well educated fans of it. You know what Mersey said, we know when someone's having us off. And to hear him say that on Saturday, I thought, right, fair play to you, because it was awful. You know, and if he'd have come out and said, well, you know, we passed it around brilliantly in that first half, but he didn't. He came out and said, you know, it wasn't good enough. There'll be a reaction next week. And I think just to hear that little bit of language change kind of made me think, right, okay, you know, the penny's kind of dropping a little bit here, that, you know, we have got standards and we need to stick to them. And I just found, I know Sunderland are on a decent mini little run for them, but I think we'll be too strong for them at the weekend. And, you know, Aaron Lennon's talking about signing off possibly his Everton career at Goodison, who knows, with a goal or two at the weekend. And I can see him and Lukaku getting on the sheet at the weekend. Yeah,
I think there has to be a reaction, as you said there. I mean, I think the penny dropped a while ago for man, as it dropped after Stoke, to be honest. And I just think
I just think he got it wrong. Though. I mean the language.
Yeah. Of course. But I think a lot of things changed when after Stoke and realism started hitting that way we were. And I think Villa, he just got it completely wrong. And I hope he learns that he got it completely wrong.
Well, he has said that as well, hasn't
he? Yeah.
Can't be and all that.
Know what the worst thing about Villa was? That the two players you'd want to come. Well, the two players you'd want to come on the pitch were already on the pitch in Morales and Naismith.
Yeah.
They are your subs that you want to come on. I hope he goes back to tried and tested. You can play Morales at home. That's not a problem against a team like Sunderland. You can do that, but you need someone in the middle of the park like Barkley to, or even Osman to just show things up, to have a little bit of experience in there. And I hope they're back. As I say, get Alcaraz off the bench. He's not needed. You know, bring one of the youngsters in. Get one of the youngsters on the bench.
McGeady as captain. Just get everyone angry.
Amazing. There's not really much we can say about this game because it's gonna be crap. One thing I will say about it, final things you just mentioned, Lennon there, it is his final game at home because obviously he can't play against Spurs on last game of the season. There are reports this week saying that the fee is now 9 million. Do you believe that? Or do you believe we're being softened up a little bit? Because some people will say, oh, the club are already getting it out there that we're not going to sign this player, so they're softening us up. They're giving us the early, you know, the early little sort of disappointment, realism that this player isn't going to be signing this season. Or do you think 9 million is just one of them? It's not. I think it's paper talk, but I also think it's come from a good source because of it was in the Guardian. But you think that 9 million? It is not. They might be saying 9 million at the moment. It was 6 million earlier. They'll sort of find room in the middle for it to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Everton are trying to put it out there that they're not going to sign him because he's too expensive. I don't believe that. I may be wrong. I think you probably get him for about 7.5 million. To be honest with you, I think no surprise if the goalposts have changed a little bit with Daniel Levy. You know, I wouldn't trust them to agree on any kind of price, you know, and follow it through. All I'll say is that there was no fee. I'm led to believe there was no fee agreed at the start of his loan period, which obviously always leaves it wide open, doesn't it? Because, you know, if the lad comes in and has a nightmare, you know, then, you know, you step away. But I think if he comes in and does really, really well, and you haven't agreed any kind of fee, you know, you're open to what they want to charge for him. The fact is, I think he's got just over a year left on a contract.
That's the sticking point, isn't it? Because Everton are saying, well, why would we pay £9 million for a player who's only got a year left on his contract?
However, I think 7.5 million is a good fee. I think Spurs would be happy with that. I think I'd be very, very happy to pay 7.5 million for him. I think he's been a massive, massive reason why Everton have been able to turn the results around. I think he's give us energy, he's give us goals, he's give us pace, you know. And I think if we were to let him go, I'm not sure who you would bring in that role around Europe who could potentially have the same effect, knows the Premier League and already knows how we play. So for me, he's a must in terms of signing him. And like I say, I'd expect the deal to be done for around £7.5 million.
Good stuff. Hopefully it happens. Oh, the prospect of Aaron Lennon and Tom Cleverley playing together just fills me with so much excitement that I can't wait.
Are you honestly not? Are you
to go to
not
Bratislava? No, I'm just thinking of Tom Cleverley, Aaron Lennon in Bratislava, the first week of July, in the first round of the qualifiers of the Europa League. This is what football is all about. The magic of the pre-first round qualifiers of the Europa League under-7s tournament in Bratislava.
Cleverley will be another Darren Gibson. He'll be one of those players that people don't really want, but when he comes in, they'll appreciate him because he's a decent footballer. You don't play for Manchester United if you're rubbish. You don't. I'm sorry.
No, I tend to agree with you on that. We do need squad players. We need 5 or 6, 7 or 8 into the squad, and if you can get a couple on frees, that makes a massive difference, especially when the manager knows them.
We need a centre forward.
We do need a centre forward. That's why we need to just save all our money for a centre forward. So save our money for a centre forward and get everyone else on a free and raid the under 9s. Yeah, and raid the under 9s. Right, I think that's all we've got to talk about because it's very, very hard to talk about anything at this time of year. But we do our best. We do our best. Yeah, and the second half of Barcelona on. So from Baz, me, Ped, thanks to the people who are watching. Thanks to the people who watch not live as well. Thanks for watching.
We'll be back next week.
Yeah, we'll be back to normal next week. If there's any problems with the sound, sorry, I didn't put my headphones on early enough. And don't forget as well, if you want to be on the show when we're in the pub, let us know. Get in touch with us on Twitter at ToffeeTV1. Email us ToffeeTV1@gmail.com if you want to be a guest. If you're free on a Monday evening, you're in Liverpool, you want to come to Windsor, you want to be a guest, let us know. We'll get you on. If we can't get you on this season, we'll get you on next season. So for me and Baz, thanks for watching. Head